Cathedrals are a good example of humanly created spaces, because the cathedrals of the Middle Ages, as discussed in George Dubey's The Age of Cathedrals, are because cathedrals were an important part of the everyday lives of the various classes during the Middle Ages. Forgive me. The cathedrals were the spaces in which the religious orders and the peasant orders and the noble orders all showed their devotion, all practiced the Catholic religion. They're also where new developments in art, usually in new ways of praising God, showing devotion, came about. But they also allowed religious communities or local lords to show their wealth, their prestige, their connections. And by the end of the Middle Ages, even locals were allowed this honor. They could endorse statuaries of members of local guilds to adorn the cathedrals, or images to appear in the stained glass windows. Cathedrals were a metaphorically breathing part of the culture of the Middle Ages. They were living art that showed how the theology of the day was gradually changing to become a more open type of institution, as the church was becoming more of an open institution, as people were being allowed in and given greater contact with the clergy and with the divine. And we see this as churches go from one-story buildings that were shrouded in darkness to these magnificent edifices that let light stream through these beautiful windows to illuminate the occupants, both with literal light and with the metaphorical light of the divine. A good comparison to the importance of cathedrals and the importance of created spaces as they reflect popular culture or civilization and its developments would be, say, the pyramids. Since the pyramids were created to proclaim the glory of the pharaohs that commissioned them. They were meant to last forever, and they were meant to provide the pharaoh not just with a monument to his glory, but to contain everything that pharaoh would need in the afterlife. And they began quite simply, and they became more and more extravagant and polished as the architectural styles developed and the tools got better, and the wealth of the nation and the belief in the pharaoh's greatness grew as time went by. We could even see something similar in the modern skyscraper craze, the modern-ish skyscraper craze, as buildings began to rise and rise due to limited real estate during the late Victorian period, and eventually the use of, or the design of tall buildings became less a question of space and more a question of power and artistic achievement. This is most obvious in Manhattan. Originally the small real estate means that you have to build up rather than out, and eventually you want to go higher and higher to show how more advanced you are, and you then embellish that with Art Deco styles and prominent spires or various capstone designs. So cathedrals are an important part of both the development of art and architecture in the Middle Ages, and the way these important meeting places in society and their changes affect society, but also the way that the mindset of an era can gradually change as new developments come about, as societies diverge from the status quo that existed before, and how this can be seen in the buildings we see around us.